Hello friends, my name is Jess and welcome back to my channel, Books Past Bedtime. In today's video, I am going to be bringing you a recommendations video. I'm going to be talking about my favorite queer historical fiction books. Now, I love me a Regency romance, and honestly, that's what most of these are, but they are all queer. They're all in the LGBT community, various sexualities and genders all represented throughout my list. Hopefully, there will be a little bit of something for everyone. Some of these are more popular, some of them are more underrated, so hopefully you haven't read everything on the list, but these are just my top 10 favorite as of right now, as of what I've read. So I wanted to share them with you in case you're looking for anything that is historical but also queer, which I'm often looking for. So if you also have recommendations, please leave them for me in the comments. I also have a reading vlog planned where I'm going to read some more queer historical romance. So if you have anything that you would like to see me read in that video, please leave it in the comments down below as well. I would love to know. So without further ado, let's just hop right into it. These books are in no particular order, although I do think my very favorite is the last one that I'm going to talk about, so make sure you stick around. The first book I want to talk about is Tommy Cabot Was Here by Cat Sebastian. This is an second chance romance, and it's set in like the 1950s in Massachusetts. It is also a novella, so it's pretty short. A good thing for like dipping your toes into the genre if you're not quite totally sure about it. I would definitely recommend this one. In it, we're following two characters named Everett and Tommy. Everett and Tommy used to be friends a long time ago, but they had a sort of falling out when Tommy got married, and they haven't spoken since. But then they've run into each other again 15 years later, and their lives are totally different. They were both heartbroken by their separation, and they have to kind of figure out whether like getting over that heartbreak and offering forgiveness is worth like having them like risking it again so they can have each other in their lives. It's honestly like such a beautiful and such a romantic story, and so much emotion and tenderness is packed into like 150 pages. It's really honestly incredible, and I really honestly think this is the like most successful use of the second chance romance trope that I've ever read. I don't always love a second chance romance. That's not always my favorite trope, but it's done so well here. This is such a beautiful story, such a beautiful romance. It has so much emotional depth, such an interesting plot. There is like a kid element to it too, which is really cute. Everett is Tommy's son's teacher, and that's kind of how they get reintroduced, and so that element of the story is really adorable as well. This is just a great novella. Another like good thing to read like before the end of the year to meet your Goodreads goal because it's super short. I would honestly recommend this 100%. The next book I want to talk about is Solomon's Crown by Natasha Siegel. This is a book I don't see around a lot, but I love it to death. I thought it was incredible. This is set in 12th century Europe, and it follows the newly crowned King Philip of France and Richard, Duke of Aquitaine, who also ends up being an heir to a throne when he doesn't expect that. These are two real historical figures, yes, but this story basically takes the skeleton of who they are in history and just totally rewrites history, basically. It's like fan fiction for two historical figures. That being said, that's not like a bad thing. That's not a negative thing. This is one of the most beautiful romantic freaking books I've ever read in my life. So Natasha Siegel basically takes historical accounts of how King Philip and Richard were really close as children, even so close that they shared a bed, but then they had this incredible, insane rivalry, and basically the fate of medieval Europe hung in their hands, and they were like on two different sides of this massive war, but had been childhood friends. And so she took that like story, that concept, that idea, and was like, they're in love. Which I love. It's amazing. And it felt like it could be so real. I will say that most of the negative reviews around this book stem from the fact that the historical King Philip and Richard, Duke of Aquitaine, horrible people, terrible men, and they don't like the idea of like reimagining their history to like be redeemable, which fair. Me personally, I don't know enough about it, and also I'm willing to suspend my disbelief for the masterpiece that is this book. But if you don't think you would be, maybe don't read it. But I don't know, I thought it was so good. Like, it's so good. Just pretend it's fantasy. Just pretend it's fantasy, because it is. It's fantasy. But yeah, it's so beautiful. It's like incredibly beautifully written. I underlined so many things in this book, like literally every other page I underlined something, because the writing is just incredible, and the emotions the writing conveys are immaculate and wonderful and lovely, and literally just one of the most romantic books I've ever read. Like, it is. I also talked about this book in my video where I recommended like popular book talk books and then like underrated queer books, and this book I paired with Song of Achilles because it does have that similar kind of underpinning of like, oh, we can't be together because of the times, and also like it's painful and sad, and it's, you're just reading it like, why can't these two just be together and be happy? Like, this is so frustrating, but ultimately it's just so beautiful. It's so lovely. I love this book so much, and I think it is so good and so underrated and has gotten like too much unfair criticism, in my opinion, which, like, you know, fuck men. Fuck real men all you want. Like, they suck. I understand. But this book is so good. The next book I want to talk about is Infamous by Lex Croucher. I love this book. I thought it was so good. It's another like Regency historical romance. It is set in England around the Regency time, and it is sapphic. It follows Eddie and Rose, who are best friends, and they have like done everything together for as long as they can remember. But Eddie starts feeling some type of way when Rose goes out for her first season and starts talking about marriage. Eddie doesn't really know why she's feeling some type of way, but she is. And so to kind of forget about Rose and what's going on and her feelings, she throws herself into her other passion, which is writing. And she gets invited by this famous poet to go away to this like gothic mansion to this writer's retreat. And Rose and her fiance end up coming with Eddie. Eddie is just really trying to ingratiate herself into this group of writers, while the whole time Rose is trying to get Eddie to stop being a fucking idiot. This book really was so sweet and precious and soft. Eddie is kind of a frustrating main character because you just want to shake her the whole time, like, stop being an idiot. Like, look at what's right in front of you, you're dumb. But I that's sometimes just par for the course in a romance book, and I do think it was done well here, and I do think this is really well written, and I do think some of the things that Eddie got into were really funny. Like, I had such a fun time reading this book. I thought it was hilarious. Also, it has like one scene in it that has just been seared into my memory because it was so good. The bathtub scene. If you've read this book and you know what I'm talking about, you know. Like, that scene was filled with so much sexual tension. Like, it was insane to read. Like, it was so good. I still think about it all the time. Like, rarely do I remember more than like the gist of a book that I've read. I remember that scene like word for word. It is so good and so memorable and so like hot and sweet and romantic, and I loved it. Like, this is really not that spicy of a book, but that scene was chef's kiss. So good. Next, I want to talk about a series. I'm not sure if there's going to be more than 2 books. There's only 2 books right now. So I wanted to mention both of them. And those are the Doomsday books by KJ Charles. The first book is called The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen, and the second book is called A Nobleman's Guide to Seducing a Scoundrel. And I loved both of these. They're both set in, I guess, Regency era England. They're set on this place called the Romney Marsh, which is kind of infamously run by the Doomsday smuggling gang. And with the war over, like, things are kind of like starting to settle down, but both books take place in this area of England. The first book, Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen, follows Sir Gareth, who was abandoned by his family as a small child, so he's always kind of had like connection issues, like really wanted to have a family, find someone to connect to. And so whenever he has any kind of like romance or something, he throws himself fully into it. And so that's what happens with him and his anonymous hookup, basically. But their affair kind of ends as quickly as it started, and Sir Gareth is left licking his wounds. But then he like unexpectedly inherits this manor in the Romney Marsh. Turns out his anonymous hookup was none other than Joss Doomsday, who is the head of the Doomsday smuggling clan. And now Sir Gareth is like nobility, basically, in this marsh, and things get complicated, needless to say. Even though they're like poised to be rivals, they cannot stay away from each other because they have such an interesting connection, and so yeah, they have to figure out how they're gonna make it work. I really liked it. KJ Charles is an author that I've read a lot of. Some books I love and some books are more difficult for me. Like, sometimes their writing style is a little bit too almost like detached for me to get into, but these like newer books I have loved. I've loved both of the books in this series and would like 100% recommend, even if you've read KJ Charles before in the past and you haven't really loved them, I would definitely recommend giving these a shot because they're my favorite that I've read from them and I love them so much. The second book, A Nobleman's Guide to Seducing a Scoundrel, is kind of a similar situation. It follows our main character Rufus, who has recently inherited this earldom. The earldom, also located in the Romney Marsh, tangled up with the Doomsday clan. There's a lot of people that don't really want Rufus to be the earl, including his uncle and also Luke Doomsday. Luke Doomsday comes to the earldom and it's like, yo, I have this claim on the earldom. We have to investigate, see if it's real. If it is, you are not the earl. But then Rufus and Luke kind of end up becoming unexpected allies because Luke is kind of exactly what Rufus needs. Rufus needs somebody who is organized, trained in secretarial work, can help him get this earldom like back in order, and Luke is all of these things, and so he hires Luke to be a secretary. They become friends and then lovers. But Luke really has come to this manor for like this underground secret reason. These lies and secrets start piling up, and like, will they be able to overcome all of them? Will love conquer all, as you might say? These are both so good. They're very like well plotted and very intricate. They're much more like involved than I think some of the other books on this list, in that they like have a lot of things going on around the romance that are equally as important to, if not more important than the romance. Like, the romance is definitely the focal point of the story, but there's a lot more going on. So if you're someone who needs like more of a plot to your stories, these would definitely be for you. They're so good. Next on my list is The Perks of Loving a Wallflower by Erica Ridley. Now, I do want to say the cover of this book leads you to believe that this is a Sapphic Regency romance, and it is, but I think it's important to note that our main character Tommy is likely non-binary, even though they didn't have the words for that when the story is set. And I'm not really sure why that is not included in any of the marketing and any of the summaries for this book. I don't know if they were just trying to stay realistic to the time period or what, but there are a lot of nuanced discussions of gender that I don't think are inherently obvious when you're first looking at this book, when you're first hearing about this book. And I did want to point that out because I do think that is a huge positive to this story, and it kind of makes me sad that it's not celebrated and it's not obvious. So I did want to bring that up before we got into it. But anyway, this story follows Tommy and Philippa. Tommy is a master of disguise. Tommy is the one that I would personally label as non-binary, and that's what it sounded like was coming across in the narrative to me personally. She doesn't explicitly identify as that in this book, but yeah. Anyway, Tommy's a master of disguise. She is kind of a member of this like rough and tumble gang that are kind of like vigilante in that they try and like solve crimes and right wrongs and do things that the police don't do, basically. And Tommy is a master of disguise. So one day she can be like a beautiful young lady and the next day she can be like an old man. That's her thing. She like dresses up as other people. On the other hand, Philippa is a blue stocking and she's never really been attracted to anyone, man or woman. So I think that that's also interesting. There's a nuanced discussion about Philippa's sexuality, and that I do feel like demisexuality might be something that she would label herself as in today's day and age, so I liked that as well. Somebody has stolen Philippa's priceless manuscript and she hires Tommy to help her find it. She originally thinks Tommy is a man, but is pleased to discover that she's a woman. After they kind of like form a friendship and a working relationship, they do start to fall for one another. Tommy has had a crush on Philippa for a while too, so just proceed to have a really sweet, cute romance. And I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really well written. I really thought this was a beautiful story. Tommy and Philippa's chemistry is really good, and I really loved them both as characters. It's a very like charming and sweet story, and it definitely like fills the void of a Regency romance, but make it queer. And again, I really appreciated all of the nuanced discussions around gender and sexuality that are present in this book, and wish they weren't like dumbed down by the cover, so to speak. So yeah, I really liked this one, would definitely recommend, and I'm sure you've seen it around for good reason. The next book I want to talk about is Something Fabulous by Alexis Hall. This is an romance. It's a Regency, age gap, and kind of a grumpy sunshine situation. It also has demisexual rep in it, which I love. I love any kind of ace rep. Basically, this book follows our main character, Duke Valentine. Duke Valentine doesn't really like anyone, has never really been attracted to any man or woman, but he really wants to follow his father's wishes and go through with this marriage to this woman named Arabella Tarleton, who he's been betrothed to forever. And so he goes to like make good on this promise to his father, but Arabella runs away. Like physically runs away. And so her brother Bonnie kind of goads Valentine into going and finding her and like saving her, bringing her back, whatever. Bonnie because he cares about her, and Duke Valentine is convinced because he still wants to follow through on this marriage so he can make good on his promise to his father. And so they go on this like campy romp across Regency England to find Arabella, and along the way Bonnie and Valentine end up falling in love, and it's really cute and it's really fun. For me, it honestly doesn't get much better than Alexis Hall's writing style. There's just something about his writing that is so hilarious to me, and I just think it is so funny. I love his humor and I love his writing style. I always love his characters, and I just love how like campy and ridiculous his book was. Like, it was just so much fun. Bonnie and Valentine are like complete opposites, but they totally work together and totally make sense to each other. They complement each other in all of the ways that the other is like lacking, you know, to make this like perfect unison, this perfect like union. Valentine like sometimes is kind of frustrating because he is very intent on self-sabotage, but you know, like relatable, so he comes around in the end, and it's just really good and it's really fun. I feel like honestly quite a few books on this list have negative reviews and like not super high Goodreads ratings, but I'm so glad I read all of them because I love all of them. I feel like there's a lot of people taking this book too seriously. Like, this is a ridiculous, campy, stupid book, and that's the point. That's the point of the book. Like, I feel like if you go into this book not taking it too seriously, you will love it. Like, there's not really, I don't know, to each their own. Everyone can have their own opinion, don't get me wrong, but I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was so fun. It's amazing. And I don't really understand the criticism, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because yeah, it's so unserious. It's so unserious, I promise. Next on my list is The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite. In this book, we're following our main character, Lucy, who, as she watches her ex-lover's sham of wedding, she really wishes she was anywhere but there. And so in order to distract herself, she finds the perfect thing. There is this person who is looking for someone to translate a French astronomy text, and Lucy has grown up working with her father, who is an astronomist, and so Lucy does know astronomy. So she applies, very like intent on proving herself and finding something to distract herself from her ex-lover stomping all over her heart, basically. She does not expect to find Lady Catherine, who is a woman who takes her breath away. Lady Catherine has this manuscript because her husband has now passed away, and so she kind of wants to have it translated, published, whatever, for him posthumously. She kind of expected to just hand off the translation, wash her hands of the project, but Lucy is very intriguing to her, and so she agrees to let Lucy stay and take care of the project. But then as Catherine finds herself longing for Lucy, she finds that everything she thought she knew about her life is about to be tested. This book is a classic in the sapphic romance genre for a reason. It is incredible. It is so beautiful. It is, again, I think set in like Regency England, so I think almost all of these books are. If you have any historical fiction recommendations that aren't set in Regency England, let me know. That seems to be what I gravitate towards though. Anyway, this is a classic for a reason. It is so beautiful. Like, I feel like only a romance between 2 women could be this beautiful. It is incredible. These 2 are just like so loving to each other, and I really loved the like how they encouraged each other to like be better people and to live up to their own kind of potentials, and they just really complimented each other and really just truly loved and cared about each other. It was so beautiful and lovely and wonderful. Yeah, if you haven't read this book, it's a classic for a reason. You really need to. Next on my list is The Queer Principles of Kit Webb by Cat Sebastian. This is an MM romance. It also has ace rep in it, and it's a bit of a like forbidden romance, class traitor romance, if you will. It is also set in Regency England, I guess, and it follows our main character, Kit. Kit has retired from a life of crime. He kind of like owns a coffee shop now, but sometimes, every once in a while, he gets that itch for thievery, the thrill and the rush of it. He kind of misses it a little bit. His life's a little bit boring. So when a highborn man named Percy enters his shop and tries to hire Kit to steal this like special book for him, he doesn't agree to do the stealing, but he does agree to teach Percy what he knows and how to be successful. Percy knows he has little choice, but he does discover that there are other crimes he also wants to commit with Kit. Cat Sebastian honestly never lets me down. I really enjoy their historical romances. Every time I pick them up, their writing is so quick and witty and funny. They write really good chemistry. They write really good characters. I really loved this book. I thought it was so much fun. Next on my list is Gwen and Art Are Not in Love, another book by Lex Croucher. This is, I think, one of the only YA books on this list, but it's definitely worth making it on the list. It's so much fun. In this book, Gwen and Art have been betrothed since they were kids. They are in this like political betrothal. They're both heirs to their highborn families, you know. Gwen and Art not only are not in love, they actively hate each other. The only thing they can agree on is the fact that they hate each other, but they are being forced to spend the summer before their marriage together. So they have to figure out how this is going to work. But within 24 hours, Gwen catches Art kissing a boy, and Art digs up Gwen's diary to find out that she is enamored with the one lady knight in the kingdom, Bridget. And so they both now have blackmail material on the other, so they decide that they'd be better off as allies. So they make this pact to cover for each other, and throughout the summer, Gwen and Bridget grow closer, and Art ends up having a crush on Gwen's brother. There's too many names. Sorry, I was getting confused by my own love square description. So yeah, that's what this book is about. So there's a sapphic and an MLM romance in it, and it is just so fun. It's very campy. I think it's a retelling of Arthur of Camelot or something. I don't know. It's historical. It kind of feels fantasy because there's kind of princes and princesses and stuff. I think it's technically historical fiction. Basically, this is so cute and stupid, and I really loved it. It's so good. Okay, and last but certainly not least is A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. Like I mentioned, the last book I was going to talk about is going to be my favorite, and this book is definitely my favorite. This is one of my favorite books of all time, not only just in this genre. If you read one book on this list, it should be this one. It's so good. So this is another Regency romance. We're following our main character, Viola. Viola is a trans woman. When she was presumed dead at Waterloo, she took the opportunity to reinvent herself and live how she has always wanted to live. But this freedom to live how she wanted to live came with a lot of loss, and that she lost her best friend, Justin, the Duke of Gracewood. She also lost her wealth and her title, and now lives as a lady's maid for her sister-in-law, I think. Yeah, her sister-in-law. But at least she still has her family. When her family and the Duke of Gracewood's family reconnect, Viola discovers that Gracewood has really not been dealing with her death gracefully. He is in this horrible place, and so is striving to bring Gracewood back to himself. This new relationship that they're building kind of echoes their old relationship. New failings start to come about, and they begin to fall in love. But what was once impossible might still be impossible, considering who Viola is. But Viola cannot deny their connection, and so even if it costs her everything all over again, they're gonna have their romance. This is truly Alexis Hall's magnum opus. Like, this is the best book he has ever written. It is one of the best books anyone has ever written, in my humble opinion. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was gorgeous. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was fabulous. This is so different in tone than Something Fabulous. Something Fabulous is a stupid book. This is a very serious book, but not in like not in a stuffy way. There are like moments of humor in this book that are really well done, very well timed, very amazing and excellent and wonderful. But this is such an emotional, deep, powerful read. Like, this is just a good book. Like, you read this book and you're like, that's incredible. It's incredible. It's so good. It literally has everything I love. The characters are so good. I love both of them so dearly. The Duke of Gracewood is like the best book boyfriend ever. Like, green flags only. That is a man. That is a man. Viola is just so lovely and so relatable and so just like beautiful to her core. I love this book so much, and the romance is just insane. The chemistry is so good. I like have no words. I am speechless. This book makes me speechless. It's that good. It is so good. This is like a 10-star book, okay? It's like a 10-star book. It's amazing. It's immaculate. And you need to read it if you haven't already. I love it. Okay, so that is my video. Those are all my favorite queer historical romance books. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, I do have them all linked in the description. These are affiliate links, no extra cost to you. Will help out the channel if you buy through them, but no pressure. Just there if you would like it. You can also follow me on social media. Those links are in the description. And if you're not already, or this is your first time, I would really appreciate you subscribing to my channel. I exclusively talk about queer books on this channel, so if that's something you're interested in, I would love to have you stick around and join me. If you liked this video, make sure you give it a like, and if you know someone who would appreciate it also, you can share it with them. I would also appreciate that. And just leaving a comment down below is a great way to help me out as well. And also, I just love chatting with you guys and hearing what you think. So with all that being said, I think that's everything. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.